In a nation long defined by royal restraint, what unfolded within Westminster Abbey shattered the quiet order of Britain's monarchy. A future king stood before the country's political elite not in celebration, but in defiance. Prince William's public defense of King Charles against the sitting Prime Minister became the boldest royal intervention since Edward VIII's abdication crisis. What began as ceremony transformed into a political earthquake. Phones buzzed, broadcasters cut their programs, and social media erupted. For the first time in living memory, a senior royal confronted the government not through politics, but through principle. And the question echoed through Westminster: had the heir to the throne just redrawn the boundaries of royal power? Outrage erupted. Newspapers branded the revelations an ethical collapse. Tens of thousands rallied outside Parliament, waving Union Jacks and chanting "Hands off our King." Veterans, teachers, and pensioners marched side by side. For the first time in decades, the monarchy became a unifying cause. International analysts drew grim parallels with global populism, warning that Britain's moral immune system was under attack. By targeting a non-political institution, strategists had weakened one of democracy's last stabilizing anchors. Britain, a senior diplomat said, was a democracy staring into its own reflection. Inside Buckingham Palace, restraint ruled. King Charles maintained silence, yet followed events closely. He understood that every gesture now carried constitutional weight. The crown could not trade blows, but it could embody steadiness while politics convulsed. For Prince William, the storm confirmed what he had feared. Silence could no longer shield the monarchy from decay. His words at the Abbey were not rebellion, they were preservation. When King Charles finally spoke, it was with grace. At a private Commonwealth dinner, he reminded guests, the crown does not engage in political battles. We serve. We do not rule, but we do not abandon the principles that keep this nation steady. Without naming anyone, he recentered the moral debate. The monarchy appeared serene, the government frantic. News channels replayed his remarks worldwide, calling them the calm after the constitutional storm. Inside Downing Street, chaos reigned. Ministers quarreled, aides resigned, and loyalty evaporated. Even sympathetic tabloids turned. One brutal headline read, "Veterans freezing while Starmer plots against the king." Public opinion swung sharply. Polls recorded a surge of royal support unseen since Elizabeth II's golden years. The monarchy's approval soared above 80%. For citizens exhausted by years of division, the royal family's composure felt like moral refuge. But experts warned of danger. William's defiance, however principled, risked precedent. Could future monarchs intervene whenever conscience stirred? Britain's delicate constitutional balance now rested on interpretation, not certainty. Markets wavered as rumors of an internal coup spread. Investors spoke nervously of constitutional risk. The pound dipped. The Bank of England appealed for calm. Meanwhile, spontaneous demonstrations filled the streets from Glasgow to London, crowds chanting, "Respect our king," in a rare moment of cross-class unity. Abroad, allies praised Britain's restraint. Commonwealth leaders lauded the king's dignity. Even American commentators called the crisis a battle between integrity and ambition. Historians compared it to 18th-century confrontations between crown and parliament, yet noted the modern twist. In a digital age of outrage, the royals had wielded silence as strategy. Cameras fixed on the solemn grandeur of the Abbey as the Prince of Wales approached the lectern. His words, calm yet deliberate, sliced through the air. "My father's wisdom and dedication to this nation require no defense from any politician." The room froze. The Prime Minister's expression faltered, silence pressed upon the marble walls, and even the faint rustle of paper sounded thunderous. Those 12 words, delivered with surgical precision, struck at Britain's sole loyalty tradition and the sanctity of the crown. Within Westminster, panic turned to revolt. Senior peers considered an archaic censure motion against the Prime Minister for undermining the crown, a mechanism unused since the Georgian era. The very notion sent shockwaves through Parliament. Polls soon confirmed Labour's collapse. Support plunged to historic lows, Conservatives near 40%, Reform UK surging past 25%, Labour sinking into the 20s. The numbers were merciless. Britain's government had imploded not through scandal alone, but through loss of trust. Crowds gathered outside Downing Street chanting "Resign." Drone footage of thousands singing "God Save the King" flooded global broadcasts. Analysts compared the scenes to wartime unity. Newspapers from left and right alike declared, "The crown stands tall." Inside Number 10, despair reigned. Ministers deleted social media accounts, aides fled, and civil servants drafted contingency plans for early elections, or even a unity administration. The cabinet secretary likened the chaos to worse than Brexit, worse than COVID. Foreign capitals watched with alarm. Canada praised the monarchy's continuity. Australia urged respect for constitutional institutions. European editorials described Britain's implosion in real time. In Washington, anchors spoke of a spectacular self-destruction. By midweek, leaked Labour chats titled "Aftercare and Damage Control" reached the press, revealing MPs plotting Starmer's removal. The government's moral collapse was complete. For the first time in centuries, a royal act of conscience had triggered the downfall of an elected leader. As Parliament reconvened, tension electrified the air. The Prime Minister faced the Commons pale beneath the lights. Opposition leader Rishi Sunak launched his assault. A sequence of forensic questions: had public funds been misused? Foreign consultants hired authorization, given each answer unraveled under evidence. Screenshots and invoices flashed before the chamber. Silence followed. Even Labour benches sat motionless. By evening, Starmer's authority was finished. Senior MPs demanded his resignation. Constitutional scholars warned that if he refused, the king might be compelled to intervene, a move unseen since 1926. Britain balanced on the edge of another constitutional reckoning. Outside, the streets roared again. Yet amid the noise, the monarchy remained serene. Charles continued visiting hospitals and veterans. William withdrew from view, letting his words speak for him. Their composure became Britain's last symbol of order. Pollsters noted a new phenomenon. Public trust in the Crown's judgment now outstripped confidence in Parliament by a record margin. Analysts debated what that meant. Was Britain sliding toward renewed monarchism or simply yearning for decency? Within minutes, the clip spread worldwide. Hashtags like "Chuck Defend the Crown" and "Stand with William" trended across continents. Commentators divided. Some warned of constitutional breach. Others hailed moral clarity. To a weary nation battered by inflation scandal and cynicism, the sight of a prince defending principle felt almost revolutionary. Yet beneath the uproar lay months of quiet tension, a struggle between power and integrity that had been simmering in secret. As the government fractured, Prince William quietly began consulting senior figures across the political spectrum, an act described by insiders as constitutional duty. His aim was not power, but stability. Behind palace walls, he sought dialogue with moderates of every party, trying to steady the country without overstepping tradition. Meanwhile, Reform UK surged. Nigel Farage framed the crisis as betrayal by elites, claiming, "While politicians attack our traditions, we defend them." Membership tripled within days. Donations flooded in. What had begun as fringe populism now loomed as potential realignment. Sensing opportunity, Conservatives prepared a parliamentary onslaught. Their strategy exposed every proof of Labour's misconduct during Prime Minister's questions. When evidence surfaced, emails, invoices, memos, the spectacle was devastating. The Prime Minister stood speechless. The chamber jeered. By sunset, his career was effectively over. Constitutional experts warned that Britain was entering uncharted waters. Never before had monarchy and politics collided so dramatically without violence. The king's calm had become both shield and sword. But could such equilibrium hold if the crown now embodied moral authority? How long could it resist political gravity? Across the world, headlines praised the royal family's restraint. European editors described leadership through composure. In Washington, analysts called it a masterclass in moral authority. The irony was striking. By doing almost nothing, the monarchy had done everything. Inside Britain, however, the mood was more complex. Some hailed William as the conscience of a corrupted era. Others worried that he had awakened forces no one could control. Historians noted that once a monarchy becomes the moral voice of the state, its neutrality is forever altered. King Charles sensed this paradox. He continued his duties quietly, hosting environmental summits and charity visits, embodying continuity amid upheaval. Each appearance drew crowds not for spectacle, but for reassurance. Meanwhile, inside the palace, a question echoed: had the crown merely survived, or had it changed forever? By week's end, Starmer's government disintegrated entirely. Ministers resigned en masse. The opposition prepared for elections likely to restore Conservative control, while Reform UK positioned itself as kingmaker. Financial markets steadied. The pound recovered slightly as clarity returned. But Britain's political class stood humbled, its moral authority in ruins. In contrast, the monarchy radiated renewed legitimacy. Polls showed overwhelming approval for Charles and William. Commentators dubbed the transformation the restoration of honor. For many Britons, it felt like a national reset, a reminder that dignity still mattered. Leaks soon revealed that Labour strategists had orchestrated a covert campaign to undermine the king's image, portraying him as archaic and biased. Internal messages exposed an effort to erode trust in the monarchy, an institution woven into Britain's constitutional balance. Reports alleged that hundreds of thousands of pounds of public funds had been funneled to foreign consultants, tasked with reshaping public perception ahead of the next election. For ordinary Britons, the revelation felt like betrayal. Money meant for hospitals and schools had, it seemed, been used to attack the very symbol of unity. Yet scholars warned of a fragile future. Once the crown re-enters the moral arena, it cannot easily withdraw. What happens when the next government oversteps? Will silence suffice, or will conscience speak again? The crisis that began with 12 words inside Westminster Abbey had become a mirror for the nation. It revealed the corrosion of politics, the hunger for integrity, and the enduring power of restraint. The monarchy had reawakened not through decree, but through dignity. For Prince William, the moment defined a generation. He had defended both his father and the principle that binds Britain together, service above self. For King Charles, it proved that quiet strength can outlast chaos. And for Britain, it was a reckoning, a reminder that democracy is only as strong as the honor that guides it. In the weeks that followed, streets calmed, markets stabilized, and Westminster prepared for elections. Yet beneath the surface, something had shifted permanently. The line between symbolism and sovereignty no longer seemed clear. The crown had spoken once, and the nation had listened. Across history's long corridor, one image will remain: a prince standing before his people, defending a father, a tradition, and a truth larger than politics. Whether it marked restoration or transformation, only time will tell. But one certainty endures. When history demanded courage, the monarchy answered, and Britain rediscovered its voice. What do you think this crisis reveals about leadership loyalty and legacy in modern Britain? Share your thoughts below and subscribe for the next chapter of this unfolding story. Even traditional Labour supporters expressed disbelief. The outrage crossed party lines. Calculated detonation whispered insiders at Westminster. Palace aides confirmed the speech had been legally vetted days earlier. William had not spoken in anger, but in duty. The Crown, long trained to endure in silence, could no longer ignore an assault on its integrity. Across the Atlantic, foreign media dissected every frame. Was this an overreach by an impassioned heir, or the monarchy's last stand against political cynicism? Europe's commentators spoke of a constitutional tremor reverberating through the old world's most enduring democracy. Debates erupted across pubs and living rooms. Was royal silence still virtue? If politics eroded national honor, should conscience remain gagged for tradition's sake? Britain's foundations quivered under those questions. The scandal deepened when journalists published confidential Labour correspondence. Messages exposed a strategy to depict King Charles as an obstacle to modern progress and to shift public frustration from government to monarchy. It was audacious political chess, an attempt to weaponize Britain's oldest institution. Then came the bombshell: more than £300,000 of taxpayer money had allegedly funded the operation. The consultants experts in political smear campaigns abroad were not British. Invoices and receipts followed. What had sounded like conspiracy hardened into fact.